Adrian, how are you?
I'm doing well, Steve. How are you?
Good.
Good.
And Steve, I don't know if you saw in the chat that Leslie is out.
Yeah, he sent
today.
me a text. Yeah, Leanne's gonna do that report, right?
Yes.
Thank you for that. I hate not having a quorum.
Here comes, but I don't think these that are coming in are on the TAC. I haven't learned all the members of this TAC yet, so their names.
Yeah. This is not one. Well, Charlie, what do we do? I guess we just go ahead, right? We can't
Yeah,
take
you
any
can-
action.
Yeah, you can go ahead. You can't approve the minutes or make any
Right.
recommendations until you do get a quorum, or unless you get
Okay.
a quorum. But yes, you can go ahead and start the meeting and almost start the movie.
All right, again, I'm Steve Shannon. This is a persons returning to Society from Incarceration TAC. Have the agenda on the screen. Just want to confirm TAC member Adrian Bush is here. Van Ingram, Evan Smith, and Kristen Porter. Are there any other TAC members on? Okay, take that as a no. All right, well, let's go on into our DMS update. As we heard, Leslie Hoffman is not feeling well today, so Leanne's going to give an update. Go ahead, Leanne, how are you?
And Leanne, before you start.
Yes.
Steve, don't you have someone that's going to do a presentation today?
Marcus Jackson is going to present from the ACLU of Kentucky, and he's on.
Okay, I want to go ahead and make him a co-host so he can share his screen if he has a presentation.
Okay, Mr. Jackson, do you have a presentation? PowerPoint or something?
I don't need to share a screen.
Okay,
Okay.
All right, thank you.
okay, thank you. Leanne, do you need to share a screen?
No, ma'am.
Okay, all right, sorry.
No,
All
that's
good.
okay. All right. Good morning. For those of you that do not know me, my name is Leanne Fitzpatrick. I'm a behavioral health specialist with the Department of Medicaid Services. And Leslie is not here, so I'm going to give you some updates. First off is our CCBHC. We went live on January 1st of this year. We're on track to begin our monitoring for those that are certified CCBHCs. We're continuing to define the variables for the quality measures, and we'll have that out to agencies within a few weeks. We're also continuing to evaluate the current billing code for the CCBHCs to see if there's any revisions that we might need to add to the list. Our SMI and SED 1115, we have team member Jody Allen that is working on drafting up an application. We finished up our TA technical assistance with MetManit, and we're looking for, there's possibility for additional TAs available through Manit that we can use. We researched other states, and we have quite a long list of ideas and processes that we want to put in place in that application. I believe that we are looking for a draft possibly in February. The SUD 1115 is expires in September 2023. So the extension and application for that will be due this September. So once again, we hope to apply for that and add the SMI 1115 with that. So Mobile Crisis Planning Grant, we are off and running. We are going to be starting our state stakeholder surveys, and those should be going out at the end of the week. So if you receive one of those, if you wouldn't mind just to fill that out. We're currently working on a needs assessment of what do we have currently in place right now with Mobile Crisis. Mobile Crisis is in our state plan. We do have that service. We realize having a few hypotheses right now that service needs to be redefined. So we're looking at, we're asking stakeholders right now, what's in place, what's working, what's not working. So for some information about that. And then we're going to begin working on our community stakeholders, talking to providers that are actually on the ground, the boots running, citizen members and community advocacy groups to get their, like I said, needs assessment. And we're going to be really focusing on those providers that are currently doing those services. Our reentry program, we're continuing to meet, we're continuing to work. And back in 2019, I'm sorry, that's another century. Back in 2018, when we started this as a pilot, the main goal was to be able to have their Medicaid benefits turned on once they are released. And we have found that it was taken up to 90 days, months, year. I think in a couple of cases it was a year. After review of the data that we have, the longest it's taking is 5 days to get that turned on. And a lot of times it is the day of, the day after, a couple days. But the longest that in the data that once the released person is given out to the MCO and given out to our reentry program, the longest it's taken is 5 days to get that Medicaid benefit turned on. I know that was a lot of information, but does anyone have any questions?
I've heard some concerns from folks with the Medicaid benefit being turned on, that the individual has to go to the local DCBS office and show proof of no longer being incarcerated. Is that true?
So in order for their benefits to be turned back on, yes, someone has to contact DCBS, and they should have paperwork when they leave. But also in the process of the program with APRIS being implemented, that should happen simultaneously.
Okay.
And right now with APRIS, they're sending out batches and updating that information. But yes, that was in the beginning. That was one of our hurdles and our barriers that we found, that the actual individual or a representative of that person that is on file with Medicaid has to contact DCBS in some shape or form to let them know that they are released, because that communication was not getting done.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't think we understood that as well. I mean, we didn't make sure that was happening. CMHCs at least. We try to do a better job with that now, but apparently maybe it's automated, which is good news.
It's getting there.
Yeah. And what about any news on the 1115 waiver for folks?
Oh,
leaving?
yes. I am so sorry. I left that off my list. I apologize. For the 1115 incarceration amendment that we had turned in, yes, CMS has been asking questions, which is a good thing. We are currently working on our budget neutrality to turn back into CMS. So the more questions asked, we are very hopeful. And in talking, we did have a meeting with CMS earlier this week, and they are very excited and looking forward to working with us. The only thing, they don't have their policy and procedures in place about what we have requested. A lot of states have turned in 1115s about turning on Medicaid benefits 30 days prior to release. So I believe, that's going to, a lot of states have had that approved so that we can get approved. It's being able to pay for the treatment behind the wall.
Right.
A lot of states do not have that currently in place. We are very fortunate that we do have that within DOC in place. So it's very positive. Questions are coming. So we are working as hard as we can to get those questions answered.
Super. Well, that's progress, right? Because we hadn't really.
Yes, very much.
And Leanne, you've shared a ton of information. This is really good. I'm not sure everyone on the TAC may understand the budget neutrality piece. Could you explain that?
So in order to get the 1115 application demonstration approved, we have to show budget neutrality, that it's not going to, not going to cost extra monies to, our federal matching. Which honestly, 100%, I don't 100% understand budget neutrality because I'm not a math person, but we're working on that, and we're working with our data folks and our finance folks to get that together. But you have to show that it's not going to cost any more money to implement the services that we're requesting.
Okay.
Right. This is, sorry.
Thank you. No, please.
Steve and Leanne, this is Lee Geist, and pretty much what it is that when you ask for a demonstration and you ask CMS to waive some of their regular rules, you must show that when they waive those rules, you have to assure a whole lot of things as far as protections for the members. But the big piece is that you have to show it's not going to cost the agency any more money than it would cost if you didn't waive all those rules. And sometimes that's a pretty complicated piece of information to put together. So I'm not surprised that you have to go back and forth with it a few times.
No, thank you, Lee. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Lee. All right. That was very good. Appreciate that, Leanne and Lee. Any questions for Medicaid? All right, take that as a no. All right, Mr. Jackson. Adrian, you want to do an introduction to Mr. Jackson for us?
Sure thing. Okay. So I met Marcus in the last year-ish. The ACLU of Kentucky hosts a reentry group that was started during COVID to try to address the needs of people who are currently incarcerated, people who are coming out of incarceration. And in the last year, the group decided that they wanted to focus on two areas. One was housing, which is near and dear to my heart, of course. And then a broad umbrella of decriminalization issues. And Marcus herds this set of cats every 2 weeks on Thursday, and he is awesome. And so therefore I suggested that he present on the reentry group on ACLU and really just kind of have an open discussion with us about barriers for people reentering. So with that, I'll turn it over to you, Marcus.
Thank you so much, Adrian. Is there any way that we can stop sharing screen so that I can see everyone?
Yeah, I like that too.
Thank you.
So Charlotte, yeah, you did not put, there you go.
Thank you so much. As Adrian said, and Adrian is wonderful, my name is Marcus Jackson. I'm the Smart Justice Organizer Coordinator with the ACLU of Kentucky and facilitator of the Smart Justice Advocates. And the Smart Justice Advocates is a group of directly impacted people working boldly to inspire change through legislation, policy, and community engagement. A little bit about myself. At 19, I went to prison for assault, wanton endangerment, and complicity of wanton endangerment. Released after serving 28 months, returned to prison for trafficking in cocaine within 2 years. I received 20 years for that sentence. I served 4. And 8 years after my release, I returned back for trafficking in marijuana. This time I received a mandatory 10-year sentence. Due to the amount of time that I had, I served pretty much every day of that sentence at Kentucky State Penitentiary, a maximum security prison for marijuana. Long story short, I have been under some sort of supervision with the Department of Correction for over 30 years.
Wow.
It's a lot.
Yeah, I'm trying to understand. Yeah, I agree.
It's a lot. One thing that I want everyone to know about me, I believe in accountability, regardless of who it is. If people are doing the right thing, I'm going to give kudos. When people are not, I'm going to speak up. just because of my strong belief in accountability. There's something else that I should add to before I go any further. When I was 19 and when I went to prison for those charges, I was actually a scholarship athlete at the University of Louisville, playing football under Howard Schnellenberger. While I was sitting in my cell at Eddyville, I was in the honor dorm of, my cell was 201 in the honor dorm. The individuals that had committed the crime, the lady got sick and she wanted to clear her conscience. So she sent an affidavit to the Kentucky Parole Board, to some attorneys, and to me, stating that that night that the individual got shot, that it was her car. The police officers had her license plate. They pulled them over. They took the 3 individuals to the jail, spoke to them and everything, and then released them. And then shortly after that, another person that was in the car held themselves accountable, and admitted to actually shooting the person. I say that to say this: I have always been an athletic nerd. I never really felt like there was any place that I truly belonged, because even though I was athletic, I was nerdy and wasn't really involved in the things that most athletes were doing. And then with my nerdy friends, we were hanging out and everything like that. I just never really felt like I fit in that group either. So I really never had anywhere that I felt like I belonged. So at 19 years old, when I was placed in that cell, I went to Marion County, which was a minimum security institution at that time. When I went there weren't any lack of stories of me being there and my true purpose for being there. Because, hey, a lot of innocent Black men are in prison every day. It was easy for me to buy into that because I was an innocent Black man sitting there in that situation. So the things that I learned while I was incarcerated when I was 19 years old, I had never been involved in drugs or anything my entire life. I avoided people, and I really looked down my nose at people that were directly impacted and that were sitting in prison. I felt like they belonged there. So I wasn't the type of person that had any type of compassion or empathy for people that got themselves in trouble and were sent to prison. I avoided them. My father, who was addicted to drugs, I avoided him. I pretty much despised him growing up as a kid because he was addicted to drugs. I believe I was a horrible individual then, looking back now. But coming out of all of that, I have my own experiences with what it's like to come home, the things that you need. And I've watched and I've viewed so many of these re-entry simulators and everything like that. And a lot of what people believe is going on is not actually going on. A lot of it is on us because I carried a chip around on my shoulder my entire life. I didn't trust the system. I didn't trust the Department of Corrections. I didn't trust anyone. I was hurt. I was going through trauma. I had been hurt. I was harmed and no one was listening to me. No one cared. I was simply a number. Someone had done horrible things and I didn't know any other way out. The only thing that I had was the resources in my community, which was committing crimes and being what I feel is a horrible person. That's all I had. That's all I could turn to. And I had never felt like I fit in anywhere else in my entire life. So needless to say, it kept going. But if you look at my behavior, my actions, no, I had never shot anyone. I had never engaged anyone like that. I wasn't that type of person. What was available at the time, the resources was crack. I hated selling drugs. It was horrible. I just always felt like I was taking advantage of people. So then the next charge was what I considered to be the lesser of two evils. And it was marijuana, which ended up getting me more time than anything I've ever done in my entire life. So I say that to say this. Most of the time when people return from incarceration, you're always choosing or forced to choose the lesser of two evils. Do I lie to my probation officer? Or do I lie and put down a home placement to be released so that I can get out from behind these walls, knowing that the people that allowed me to place their name on that list that I was going to live there really don't want me to be there? You know, from day one, so many things that we have to go through, and so many of the things that we choose from is out of a necessity. You know what I mean? Something that we feel like can get us to the next step, because I know most of the conversations inside, and if any of you are fortunate enough to deal with people that are currently incarcerated, and you'll hear me say CIP and FIP, but when I say CIP, I mean currently incarcerated people, and FIP, I mean formerly incarcerated people, because I hate the words inmates, I hate the words offenders, because it really discredits who that person really is. So we've identified, when I say CIPs, FIPs, and allies, I mean people that were formerly with the Department of Corrections. I applaud the Department of Corrections for so many things. The one thing that is most problematic to me is that the approach, re-entry, has to begin the moment that a person walks in the door. I've been to prison 3 times. Unfortunately, I haven't had any other convictions, any other misdemeanors or anything like that in my entire life. I just have convictions. I've always gone to prison. No one ever asked me what it was that I wanted to do. No one considered my wants. Everyone was trying to tell me what I was capable of doing. You're able to do this. This is jobs that you're going to be able to have when you go home. You know, and it's like you place so many restrictions and limitations on our lives, not just by the laws and the policies and housing and employment. It's just from day one, because of the past, because of the felony convictions, there's so many things that you can't be. I've always wanted to be an attorney. After my first conviction, I was like, I want to be an attorney. I don't want anyone else to go through what I'm going through, or what I've gone through. I was terrified. I was scared to death going into prison. And it was the worst. I mean, it was just like, oh, it was so overwhelming. It's hard to even put it into words. People spend, and I allow people to tell me every reason why I could not become an attorney, why it was impossible. You can't do this, you can't do that, you can't do. No one ever offered me, well, this is what you would have to do if that's what you really want to do. And this is how I'm going to help you, until I was at Kentucky State Penitentiary. There was a caseworker, and his name was Roger Mitchell, ex-Marine, amazing, amazing man. And he started to help me with that. He was like, well, you have these programs. He would bring me information and share those things with me. That changed my life. Randy White was the warden at Kentucky State Penitentiary at that time. And because I had so much time, I was required to be at maximum security until I got down within 4 years, where I was eligible to go to camp. I could have my sentence, you know, my custody level will come down. You cannot transfer. It was policy that you cannot transfer from behind the fence, maximum security, to minimum security, from and remain at Eddyville. I would have had to go to another institution and then come back to Eddyville, which made absolutely no sense to me. And Randy White allowed me to go and become to work in the water treatment plant. And it was every year, if you're working in a water treatment plant, you can earn a certification through Division of Compliance. I earned a Class 3 water treatment. I'm a Class 3 water certified water treatment operator while I was in the Department of Correction. It was all these little things that built my confidence and you know, just made me feel like I mattered again, and that I was capable of doing things. One thing that I've learned through all of the years that I've been dealing with mental health, and everyone in prison should be receiving some type of mental health. You know, in the Black community, that's not for us. That's white people stuff. That's how we see that. Because it further beats us up. It makes us feel like something is truly wrong with us. You know what I mean? So we're very indifferent to certain things. And I basically learned that it's hard to overcome trauma while you're living in a state of trauma. And if the Department of Corrections is exposing people to more trauma, the trauma of others, the trauma created by the environment, how do we really expect for people to get better and come home better than they came into the system? So it's almost like we're just chasing our tails with some of the things that we're doing. And going back to re-entry, it has to happen the moment that you come in. You cannot give me a program for 90 days and think that it's going to end all, that it's going to solve all of our problems. If we had that magic wand, then hey, we should have been using that a long time ago. The reality is that we have to change the way people are used to living. That means from the moment that you walk in that institution, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, for the entire time that you're there, that program is supposed to be focused on making you a better person and understanding your shortcomings, how to overcome your shortcomings, and to be better. Make this lifestyle a habit, not institutionalization, but this is how we need things to be when you go home, when you're released. Job opportunities, everything. As the world changes out here, we have to also allow the system to change inside. It has to be adaptive. And I guess I'm really more of a open discussion where people ask me questions, things like that. Believe me, you will never offend me for anything that you ask me. I have faced my demons. I know who I am. I'm well aware of who I am. I'm very comfortable in who I am and what I've been through. So do not ever feel like if there's a question that you ask me or something that you're going to say that I'm going to be offended by. I just ask you to please accept my response. But leaving on that note, the two biggest issues right now that we're trying to challenge is the parole board and the lack of leadership within the Department of Corrections. Currently, there's no criteria for people to follow. We're hit and miss. You guess. No one knows. We need people when they walk through the doors to know, like, this is what you need to do. Take these steps. Follow this plan. You know, stay out of trouble, and your chances of making parole is great. I'm very. It's so disheartening, and if anybody is really connected with the Department of Corrections, you can look at what's going on at Luther Luckett. Individuals that were going that had life sentences that have been like model, just amazing individuals and mentors to a lot of younger people that were incarcerated, will go before the parole board, 20 years, clear conduct, every program that you can take, you know, outside education, and then you give that person a deferment. What would I feel if I had been in there screwing up my whole time and it was time for me to go to parole board? I don't care anymore because I'm not going to make it. So I'm going to live crazy in here right now. I'm going to do, you know, it's like some of the things that we have control over, especially with the parole board, that the parole board has control over, is creating harm on others just because of the way that they view things and they feel like they don't have anything to lose. And deterrence theory, the whole deterrence thing is it doesn't matter. I mean, if we really think that people are weighing, you know, within the criminal behavior and the things that, if we really feel like that they are weighing the you know, well, I'm going to face this sentence or that, I can tell you right now, as a legal aid for over 20-something years in the Department of Corrections, 85% of the people don't even understand their sentences. They can't calculate their time. They don't, only thing that they know is when they're eligible for parole. Outside of that, there's no understanding. You know, there's absolutely no understanding of like what's really happening, and no one really takes the time to digest what's happening and really see what's happening. It's like most of the time you live in a state of denial. So any questions or anything like that, just feel free to unmute it and ask me.
Any questions? And
I'd
Ingram?
like to ask a question if you don't mind. Marcus, my name is Lee Geis. I work in Medicaid. And the thing about working with incarcerated individuals and their benefits is that until we are able to get this waiver approved, the release date is very, very important on our side. And everybody I talk to in corrections says it's almost impossible to know what someone's release date is going to be, so that we can't get a clear picture of, say, on Monday, Lee's going to be released, and so we can click and get people ready and get their benefits turned back on the same day, etc. I was wondering, with your extensive knowledge about corrections, if you had any ideas to propose to maybe make that process a little bit more understandable.
Understandable for on which
Corrections.
side? For corrections.
Anybody. For anybody.
Everybody.
Okay, so okay. So that's a tough one, because I'm so used to what we have now. Is sometimes it's hard to dream of like what all is actually possible. But in that thought, why are we having so much trouble with knowing when a person is going to be released? What is that true holdup? I can tell you what currently incarcerated people think. They think it's a money grab. It's like, for every day that you're incarcerated, you're going to receive money, this, and this, and this. I don't know if that is exactly true or not, but that's the mentality and that's the thought process of those incarcerated. Because personally, sentence calculations can be one of the easiest things for people that understand sentence calculations, but it can also be the most confusing things for other people. I was forced to serve an additional 1.5 years on parole, because when House 463 was proposed and it allowed individuals to serve their sentence out at minimum expiration, somehow I was credited with the time, and then it was removed, and ended up having to extend my time even out longer. I still would never understand that. I had several conversations with records about that, and it's just don't get it. I think we need a better system in place of when people are going to be released. Maybe if we're doing it 30 days out, I thought it was supposed to occur every year, but I've recently been told that it's like 30 days out from the person being served out that the sentence is calculated. Maybe we should move it back to at least 6 months, so that we know the exact date that the person is going to be released, and that so you can start working on the benefits and things like that. So yeah, definitely a better system.
It seems like it shouldn't be that difficult. I mean, why is it so difficult?
It can be because of the calculation for good time credit and everything like that. Certain amount of days that you receive per month, and the year, depending on your anniversary date, the way that it's calculated. There's a whole lot of moving pieces that I feel like we can get rid of some of them. And just like, hey, when you come in, you're going to get so many days off for your sentence a month, like meritorious 7 days, and then you have statutory good time. We can already do that. You know what I mean? Instead of like waiting for the last minute to determine if you are eligible for the credits that you are eligible for.
It also gets complicated, Judy, because of different programs, different things that you do allow additional days to be taken off your sentence. And then a lot of times folks will meet the parole board, and the parole board will say, well, you need to take this class or finish this before you're eligible. It really does get complicated, and there should be a simpler way to do it. Marcus, my name is Van Ingram. I'm director of the Office of Drug Control Policy. One of the things that frustrates me the most is that we require all of our Class D felons to be housed in county jails scattered all over the state, with very little programming or opportunity for them. Any comments or thoughts on that situation?
Yes, I have personally, I don't like the idea of Class Ds being housed at jails. The sad reality is that some people are more comfortable being at a Class D facility rather than actually going away to prison. You know, so there's something that you have to balance there, because there's a prison, I don't care who you are, prison can be a scary place until you've been there. Okay, you can only scare someone with prison once. And once you've been there, it's like, you know, you've left friends, you've left, you know, good. It's not the boogeyman that it's not the deterrent for those that's been to prison. Okay, let's make that clear. So I have an issue with if a person is, when we talk about Class D programs and people going out in the communities and working every day and things like that. My only problem is if we trust a person enough to go into the community and work every day, even though it's under some type of supervision, do we not trust that person enough to be on a monitor? So why is the need for the incarceration? Why should we have someone housed in the county jail? You know, and it's like, I hate the incentives that jails are getting, especially when you're reading reports that county jails are figuring in the number of state people that they're going to be able to house to bring in a certain amount of revenue and things like that. It's like, how do you control how people commit crimes? How can you just determine that this year so many people are going to commit crimes and we're going to be able to house these individuals? And the thing that lets me know that either you're making more things, you're sending people to jails for less serious offenses just to meet certain numbers, or you're holding people longer and refusing to let people release, even though we know that people should be on the streets, you know? So it's like, we have to get that money out of there. You know what I mean? We have to figure a way to get the money out, incentivizing Class D facilities for holding people that are Class Ds. And I think even some Class Cs are there now. But it's a lot to weigh, because some people truthfully would rather be at a county jail. They feel safer. They do get to see their families a lot more, and I am a firm believer in staying connected with your family does so much for your rehabilitation, your reentry, and your rehabilitation. And that's something that we don't discuss a lot, because, and I'm sorry to backpedal, but you made me think of something. It's like, when we speak of reentry, right? You can make me a shiny new person while I'm incarcerated. I can have all the right thoughts and, you know, just know what I'm going to do. But then you send me home, you return me back to the community that failed me in the first place. And I go back home to a family that hasn't also been working towards reentry and having mental health assistance and things like that. When I speak of my children and my loved one, how long is it before that I'm going to return right back to that dysfunction? You know, so why aren't we including the family in reentry and the efforts that the Department of Correction is taking towards those incarcerated? I mean, it's like we miss so much. Thank you,
Sorry,
man.
folks, I lost my internet. I didn't lose it. It's supposed to be right there, but it's gone. Must be taking a break. So I know this question was asked. You know, Marcus, the TAC's job is to make recommendations to the Medicaid Advisory Council and about what Medicaid can do. One, thank you for sharing. I mean, it's just remarkable information. You know, it's just your candor, your approach. It's very, you know, it was enlightening. You know, I like the idea reentry starts the first day. I used to do some work at a facility in Somerset, and my humble opinion is it was individuals with intellectual disabilities that instead of having, they were called treatment plans, it ought to be a discharge plan. That day one, we're talking about leaving. We're not sticking around. This is the goal. May take a longer time for some people, but that's the whole approach. So I think that kind of, if that's the objective, why wait? You know, the end date is too confusing for me to calculate, but you know, let's figure out when that is. And that's the focus going forward. But from the Medicaid perspective, what can we discuss maybe at some point recommend to facilitate the process, because I suspect with the expansion population, the number of folks leaving are going to be Medicaid eligible, most likely, the vast majority. What can we do as a TAC, make a recommendation to move forward at some point, or even have discussions amongst ourselves to make the process as smooth as possible? I mean, clearly, the 1115 that we hope gets approved sometime, that will start services earlier, but there's, people need a place to live. It needs to be a decent place to live. They need to access jobs. Medicaid pays for residential and support employment for some populations. Maybe that's not the right recommendations, but what can we do to assist that going forward? If there was 3 things that if Medicaid could change, would facilitate the process. Does that make sense?
It does. It makes a lot of sense. I think one, making the language, making the conversation accessible to all, meaning communicating with people as if they're on a 3rd grade level so that anyone can understand exactly what's going on with Medicaid, because you have a lot of letters that you're throwing out, and it's like you have to be, you have to work in this field to actually understand anything that's really being said. So really making it accessible, using accessible language, that's key. That's one thing that we always try to do. It's also educating the incarcerated community exactly about what's going on. Educating them. So 3rd grade level language, inclusive language, and then educating the population. 3rd, and probably the most important, listen. Believe me, the more that CIPs are engaged with what's going on and aware of what's going on, there's people will ask for what they want. They will tell you exactly what they need, and they will give you solutions to whatever it is you're facing. But you have to listen. You have to accept those things. It's not going to always be perfect. You know what I mean? But you figure the most brilliant minds out here, when we thought of incarceration in the first place, it didn't turn out the way that they intended. So when you do that, you have to get into the prisons. You have to have those conversations with the people that are impacted most, and then believe me, you will get your solutions. And my thing is like, why couldn't we just move the date back? In my head, it's just like, well, why couldn't we get someone covered like maybe 2 months before they were released, so that everything is already laying there when they come home? Why isn't this part of, I'm not sure. I've never had to go to the transition homes and different things like that. I went to a halfway house this last time, but I knew I had a home placement and I knew where I was going from that moment. And I've always had home placement. So a lot of these things I've never had direct experience with. So yeah, I would really prefer to let someone that's lived that life, that's actually been through that and knows those pitfalls a lot better than me, to like address that. So please engage the formerly incarcerated and currently incarcerated population.
Okay. That's a good message. Anybody else?
Marcus, if you have recommendations of folks we can talk to about, who have had faced that particular barrier, just let me know or connect me or whatever.
Yeah, I will say, if our 1115 is passed the way it's written, it will be quite a bit easier to turn benefits on prior to release. Where now CMS rules make that a little more difficult, but if our 1115 goes through the way we wrote it, we'll be in a much better shape.
Yeah.
If the 1115 waiver is approved, will help me understand, just because it's been a while since I've looked at the application. So theoretically, 30 days before the release date, assuming the release date is set and everybody knows what it is, right? And will they be automatically assigned to, say, a particular managed care organization? Can the managed care organization provide like outreach in that 30-day period within the facilities?
Yeah, I'm going to defer to Leanne. Thank
Yeah,
Leanne for coming on because she wrote it. So,
Yeah. Thank you, Leanne.
So you're welcome. So yes, we wrote it as an average of 30 days because we know that that discharge day is fluid. So the way it's written is the individual will choose what MCO, based on where they are in the state and what they cover and so forth. And then the reentry coordinator or care management, whatever you want to call them, from the MCO will work with that individual on getting what do you need when you leave? You need doctor, do you need a primary care doctor? Do you need a dentist, eye doctor? Do you need a therapist? What do you need to get you set up? What about housing? What about employment? What about everything that they'll have? I picture a little folder that they're going to walk out with all their appointments and everything, so that they're going to follow them for a year after release. So they will be in with that coordinator from the MCO a year afterwards. Maybe they don't need that a year after, maybe after 6 months they're set and ready to go, but they're always going to have that person there to assist them if they need that.
May I chime in on something?
Yes.
You made me think about something right there. I'm not sure of how soon those discussions start. I think that's something that really should start early in a person's incarceration. But please consider you have very few choices while you're incarcerated, okay? They're limited. And imagine how overwhelming it can be for someone to start speaking to you about something that you don't understand, and you have all these choices of the things that you could possibly need and want without knowing exactly what you need and want. You know what I mean? So when we think of results,
Right.
things that we want in that situation, it's like, how can we first make the language accessible, but give people enough time for them to really settle down and think about this and take the, because if you're just sitting, all too often, and I don't know how many understand, it's like, you're getting ready to go home, you're on this conveyor belt. And it's like, you have to go to the property, you have to go here, you have to go here, you have to go, which is which is really exciting. But your whole mind is on, I'm getting out of here, I'm getting out of here.
Right.
And then to have a conversation about, well, you're going to need Medicaid and this and this and this, you're going to do this, and this is what's out for you, and this is what, and it's like you set me in front of this buffet of great things,
Okay.
and want me to, and I want to eat it all. I just, I'm not sure though. You know what I mean? So it's like, we are kind of detached from those, you know what I mean? So it's like, is there ways that we can get this information out a lot sooner? It's like, kind of make these processes and understand, like, basic understanding, getting people comfortable with what exactly it is that we're talking about. And, it's almost like a coddling. I hate to say it like that, but it's almost like.
Well, another process that was changed within the reentry program was every person is going to, upon booking, gets a Medicaid application. And if they qualify, then that application is going to be put on hold. So that's hopefully the hurdle is going to be taken care of. And working within the reentry program, we know that there was a reentry class. Unfortunately, COVID, we can't do all that education, but that process was there. And if you are within the SAP and SOAR program, hopefully you're going to start the SAP program right now, the substance abuse program right now. When you complete it and when you leave, here's what you need to do afterwards. It's going to be a process your whole life. You're going to need to have therapy. You're going to need to have medication. And we're going to work with you that whole way. Hopefully though, like you said, reentry doesn't start, you're getting ready to leave in 30 days. Here's everything. Hopefully it started and discussed throughout so that it's not a bombardment. Like, okay, you need this right here. You need, this here, like you said. And we had those, I forgot what they're called, Kristen. They were reentry simulations so that you kind of knew ahead of time of what's to expect when you're released. But I really appreciate your perspective and sharing, and inform the policymakers what needs to happen. that doesn't work, this doesn't work, let people know. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Appreciate the discussion. And Sarah Johnson, who's our treatment provider, director for DOC, is not on, but they had started, Marcus, that bringing family in for folks that were graduating from substance abuse treatment while they were incarcerated. Then COVID comes along, and all of a sudden you can't bring families into the prison anymore. So hopefully one of these days COVID will be over and some of these innovative things can start to happen again.
And Marcus, I would encourage you to participate in the TAC meeting. You don't have to be a
Yes.
member. We have 11 TAC members, and right now we have 29 people participating. So, I can send you the information when we meet. The dates are on the agenda, and make sure so you're involved that way, and obviously there's no real rules who can participate. There's a vote, you have to do that. But I think it's a good step, and I appreciate Marcy's point that we're raising questions here and is bringing folks, together to discuss solutions, which I think this is a piece we haven't paid much attention to. I've been hanging around Medicaid for a quarter of a century, and we haven't had many conversations around reentry. And that's not Medicaid's fault. I think it's everybody's fault. We just haven't paid attention. I appreciate Leanne's initiatives with reentry and that process, and Medicaid realized those things need to change. So I think this is, moving forward, let's figure out how to do this right. Because the goal is to get people, back and functioning and doing well regardless. I think that's Medicaid's overall objectives for everybody, every member they have, let's get people functioning as well as they can. And move forward. I think this is a population we got to pay more attention to than we have. I don't know. Van and I have been around a long time, Van. These are new conversations for us, right?
Yeah, and it's been so interesting and fun, really, the last 2 years. So much interaction between Department of Corrections, the Justice Cabinet, and Medicaid, where we didn't have conversations for the first 15 years I was here. So to see that happening and moving forward, and everyone knows each other and is comfortable with each other, and ability to have these frank conversations of what needs to occur, and has been really a rewarding thing. Just maybe it takes a while. State government and federal government does not move at the pace that we would like.
Right.
How long, Leanne, have we had that 1115 application? At 18 months since we finished it?
We turned it in November 2020.
Yeah.
Yeah. We've been hearing about this as behavioral health tax since then.
Marcus, this is Charlie Hughes. Two things. There's been several people commenting in the chat, thanking you for your story. So I didn't know if you had been seeing that. And I have also received a private chat asking if they could get your contact information. It's not necessary, but if you're willing to share that, you can either give us that information or you can drop it in the chat. It's strictly
Yeah,
up to you.
no, it's no problem. Like I said, I'm an open book. I'm finally comfortable, with who I am. So there's my email, and here's my cell.
And Marcus, my name's Evan Smith. I work at Apple Red Legal Aid. And again, I just want to echo that too, and really thank you for taking the time this morning to join us. And, your perspective on this is incredibly important. I think if a lot of these things are going to be successful, I know there's a lot of, it's great that there's a lot of people with a lot of experience in the kind of alphabet soup of the, government bureaucracies that are, necessary for this. But again, kind of your story and your perspective is ultimately what matters the most here. And so I just want to thank you for, you didn't have to be here today. I want to thank you for taking the time to join us.
Thank you so much. And I was kind of bullied by Adrian. She said she made me. No, Adrian is wonderful.
I'm a bully. Yes, that is accurate.
Offered your name up long before I think you knew it was offered. So.
Yep.
Adrian's amazing. And thank you all. You're right. It's like having these conversations. I mean, just being here, showing up and doing the work. And it doesn't always have to. Sometimes the win is just doing the work for me, just having the conversations. And believe me, people inside, the currently incarcerated people, the formerly incarcerated people, I get aggravated all the time because it's like, you can do better. We can do better. And when I say community engagement, when I speak of community engagement, that's what I mean, like engaging directly with the people that we are talking about, getting gaining their perspectives, finding out what their issues are, trying to find solutions, and just making people better, empowering people to do better. Because believe me, I based on my record, I should never be out of prison. Just based on my record alone. But that's not who I am. That's never who I was,
Yeah.
But I think it led me to where I'm eventually going, because I am applying for law school. I have earned my degrees. I'm steady pushing. I have a wonderful network of people that are trying to get me and help me get to where I need to be. So, hey, it's never too late.
Wow. Good. Well, maybe the TAC will host your law school graduation party. How'd that be? Start the day talking about it, right?
Yeah.
Kind of a re-entry for law school, right?
Hey, yes.
Yeah,
Sounds great. And I would love to just join your meetings.
Yeah, thank you much. We appreciate you. That was really good stuff.
Mhm.
It's really kind of hard to go on from that. I think that's laid out a path for us to follow and move on. The agenda has a round robin for members or any legislation updates you want to talk about or share with the TAC or anything. I know there's a piece of legislation I suspect that Adrian was involved with Senator Thomas. It's been filed and you want to share that. I think just as a way to share information, whether it's Medicaid related or not, I think it's a group of people that may want to hear about it.
Sure. So we have been working to try to reform the rental application system, make it fairer, more transparent, less price gougey, if you will. And also, Marcus, I'll see you later. Thank you so much. So it does a few of those things. It requires landlords to advertise property when they actually have property available, accept applications when they actually have rental units available. It establishes a criminal screening process that is clear to both parties. Or requires landlords to do that so that if somebody applies, they don't get denied because of their criminal background and then have no idea why. It also, another piece of it prohibits source of income or say a housing voucher as the source of income. It prohibits the discrimination of that. So it would no longer be legal for landlords or property managers to say that they just don't accept HUD or they don't accept vouchers. And that it also, as part of the decriminalization piece, would, sorry, I'm not saying this very well, and because I don't have it up in front of me. But marijuana, like you can no longer just deny people because of a marijuana charge that they had like 20 years ago or whatever. So anyway, this has been pre-filed and filed by Senator Thomas. It has been assigned to the Senate Licensing and Occupations Committee, which I find odd. It is a judicial issue. But anyway, we'll continue talking about it. And we know that Senator Schickel has a rule that you have to have a hearing on an issue in the interim for him to allow it to pass through his committee. during the session. So anyway, like I said, we'll keep talking about it. Another piece of legislation that we're working with is with Representative Bridges and Paducah on reforming the IDs for people experiencing homelessness, which very well could affect the reentry population as well. As we know that we've made some strides in providing IDs for people reentering from incarceration. But anyway, back in 2011, the General Assembly provided a legal pathway for people without a fixed address to obtain a state issued ID. A little bit has changed over the last 10 years, a little bit, with the onset of Real ID and the regional DMV offices and such. And so Representative Bridges has filed a piece of legislation to clarify some things and also reduce the cost. Those are the two pieces I wanted to highlight now that I think might be of interest to this group. And if anybody has any questions, feel free to reach out.
All right, thank you. Anybody else? Is there anything they want to share?
Steve, we sent out award letters last week. This office is putting out about $5.2 million to community mental health centers, as well as neonatal abstinence providers that give services to pregnant and parenting women with an opioid use disorder. So we're going to get those funds out very, very soon. If you've read
we
the budget
appreciate
bill,
that, Van.
yeah, we're thrilled to get them out. It takes a while, Steve, to get
I understand.
do everything. If you read the budget bill, Kristen, there's quite a bit about reentry in there.
Yeah.
As well as language for DOC to create a pilot program of a pretrial diversion program. We'll see how that all ends up. Some of us participated on the Senate Joint Resolution 59 during the interim that kind of set up some rules for a program like that. So we'll see how that shakes out as the session continues.
And what budget bill is that in, Van?
It's in House Bill 1, the bill that the House filed last Monday.
Just trying to track that. A little bit different this time, isn't it?
Yeah, very different.
Not everyone follows the budget. Typically, the governor's presentation is done and then the budget is filed that way, and the House filed their own budget last week, so kind of preempting the governor. I'm sure there'll be similarities between the two. And we'll find out for sure tonight and see the bill tomorrow. Maybe not till Tuesday. Anybody else? Any member of the TAC wants to talk about at the next meeting their reentry efforts?
And this is Evan from Apple Red Legal Aid. One just update to give. I'm not sure if we'll be, if next month will be the best time for us to give more of a presentation, but we've got a new reentry position that we've created that's going to focus especially on Floyd County.
Okay.
That there's an attorney that will be starting with us next week. And so the goal there is they're going to be working with a social worker from one of the community mental health centers here, Mountain Comprehensive Care. And we're going to be trying to meet with all of the people who are incarcerated in the Floyd County Jail. And also, depending on capacity of the social worker and the attorney's time, perhaps some of the other people who are incarcerated in some surrounding facilities, including the state prison in Wheelwright in the southern part of Floyd County. In any case, and the goal is to kind of assess what the civil legal needs of people are before they get released, which of course is also going to connect with things like Medicaid, as this group is talking about. So anyway, I'm excited that we've got that position that's going to be getting started next week. It's going to be a new approach for us at Legal Aid in terms of how to, connect with some people. Again, the goal here is to connect with people before they're released, so that there's fewer barriers in, especially that 48 hours immediately when people are getting out. If we can address any of these legal issues before release, then of course that's going to, be better for people as they're getting out. So I just wanted to kind of let people know that that's something new for us. We're going to be figuring that out, and, learning a lot over, especially the next 4 to 6 weeks. And so, if anyone has any thoughts they'd like to share, we'd certainly welcome them, but also hope that, maybe as we get closer to March, that be able to invite soon to be coworker who will be, the one kind of more directly doing that work and be able to share some of, what we've learned through that process.
Yeah, and our next meeting really is March 10th. So we don't have one in February, so that might work.
Yeah, well, yeah, I'm happy to talk as we get closer to March about if that would, be the best use of everyone's time. But anyway, as we're doing the round robin, I just wanted to pass along that update about our work here in Eastern Kentucky.
All right, thank you. Anybody else? TAC members or non-TAC members, anything you want to share? All right. Well, that is it. I'd like to thank Adrian for bringing Marcus to us. That was great information. It was a great perspective to hear. We appreciate that. And Leanne for the pinch hitting for Leslie Hoffman with the Medicaid update. And it looks like that 1115 reentry incarceration waiver is moving forward. I think that's kind of exciting. Glad to hear it. So, and Evan just put his email address in the chat, so we appreciate that. Maybe Evan's going to reach out to Marcus himself, right? So sounds like a good person to talk to. That's all I have, folks. Anybody else? All right. See y'all in March. Enjoy your session. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Steve. Good meeting.
See you.